Hey everybody, welcome to this webinar, this session. My name is Joe Mark Witt. I'm here with Antonia Dodge, called Becoming a Personality Hacker. And we're going to show you how to deconstruct, basically, I don't remember the title, it's on the next slide, so I'm not going to even try to attempt it and then mess it up, and then you see it and correct me. But basically, we're going to deconstruct personality types. We're going to show you some of that in a few minutes here. Antonia's going to do some teaching, and she's going to talk through some of that aspect of it. And then we're going to talk about something exciting that's coming, which is our new profiler training class that we're opening up applications for. So that's kind of the ebb and flow of this webinar. So we got some great content coming right up. I'm going to hand it off to the lovely Antonia and let her rock and roll with this.
All right. So what we do when we open up our profiler training course is that we almost always do a webinar that gives you a little bit of idea what you're going to find, the content you're going to find in the program. And what's really cool and exciting about what's happening right now is that traditionally we've only opened up profiler training once a year in December, but our class sizes are becoming large. They're becoming unmanageably large. So what we've decided to do is we've decided to open up a course in the summer to test this out. And we'll have lots of cool, exciting changes, reimaginings of profiler training that we're going to talk about, some really neat stuff that we're going to throw in. But before we do that, we always want to make sure that you understand what profiler training is, because for those of you who maybe were considering joining last year and have been waiting until this upcoming year, and this is happening a little early, and you're still considering joining the course, we want to make sure that you're well informed. And for everybody else who just really wants to understand how to figure out how cognitive functions are produced from the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code and has absolutely no interest in profiler training, welcome to the webinar, and we'll teach you how to figure out what your cognitive function stack is from your Myers-Briggs type. So this particular webinar on becoming a personality hacker is an attempt to deconstruct personality types using the 8 cognitive functions, meaning that there are 8 cognitive functions in the Myers-Briggs system that each of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types are attempting to point out. In fact, that was the original purpose of all 16 Myers-Briggs types. That 4-letter code, the dichotomies, that's what they're called, were an attempt to be a decoder ring to let you know which cognitive functions or mental processes each personality type has represented in them and where they fall in what's called their cognitive function stack. Now, we have broken this down into what we call the CAR model, which you might be aware of. You can't look at the chat because it distracts me.
Sure. I also make sure everybody can still hear it.
All right. So I get my extroverted feeling 10-year-old function gets way too distracted.
When a lot of messages come in, I always wonder, is there a technical issue? So to make sure I'm seeing the messages come through.
All right, good. All right. If they can't hear it, we'll never know because I won't let you open up the chat. So I'll get too distracted. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how to figure out what a cognitive function stack is, or what the cognitive function stack is from each of those 16 Myers-Briggs types. And we're going to use me as an example. So if you've got your pen and paper, that's a good thing. Take some notes. And this is a way to figure out how to go from the 4-letter code into each Myers-Briggs cognitive function stack. So we're going to deconstruct personality types. All right, let's get started. There are 2 different kinds of cognitive functions. They are technically called perceiving functions or technically called judging functions. The perceiving functions are always sensory or intuitive. So if you look at the 4-letter code, it is the second letter in those 4 letters. It will be either an S or an N. S stands for sensory and N stands for intuition or intuitive. And the perceiving functions are intended to be the part of your brain that takes in information. It brainstorms, it makes connections, it learns without any judgment. It just perceives and takes in information. These are when you have your aha moments. These are when you remember something from the past and go through it and make new connections on old memories. This is when you forecast something into the future and basically future pace and imagine. These are all aspects of perceiving functions. So of the 8 cognitive functions, 4 of them are perceiving, and they're either sensory or intuitive. Then you have judging functions. The judging functions are always going to be thinking or feeling. This would be the 3rd letter in your 4 function or your 4-letter code. T stands for thinking, F stands for feeling. And these are where you make decisions. Your thinking or your feeling function will always be the thing that helps you evaluate. It determines the right action. It values good versus bad. It prioritizes and organizes information. And it thinks in should statements. Unlike the perceiving functions, which simply take in information and imagine and pattern recognize or remember or experience, these are the should part of us, the part that believes that that information should have an evaluation to it. It's what informs our decisions when we are being conscientious about what we're going to be doing next. And those are always the third letter of that 4-letter code, thinking or feeling. So what we're going to do is figure out how to determine your functions from your perceiving and judging functions from your 4-letter code. So this is an algorithm. It works for literally all 16 personality types. So if you take your 4-letter code and put it side by side, this is how you will figure out which cognitive functions are the 4 functions that influence you the most of the 8 functions. All right, ready? All right.
Yes.
So if you notice, we just mentioned the perceiving process will always be sensory and intuitive. It will always be that second letter. So if you are taking notes and trying to figure out your cognitive function stack from your 4-letter code, look at the second letter. This is what we call the meat in the middle. Think of the E and the J or the I and the P, whatever is on the outside. Think of that as bread. We're looking at the meat in the middle. The S will be the perceiving function. And the T, or the S or N, and the T or F will be the judging function or the judging process. So make a little note next to the S or N as the perceiving, and next to the T or F as your judging function. All right, so what informs all of it, and why knowing whether you're a judge or a perceiver is so vitally important, is that which function stacks or which functions you are preferring and which functions are in your stack is actually the most influenced by that last letter, the 4th letter, the J or the P, that piece of the bread. This lets you know what your organizational style is going to be, or your organization style. It will inform you whether or not you're using your judging function, which of course is always the T or F, in which direction it will be facing. And I'll let you know what that means in just one moment. But just know that that last letter is in some ways the key to the whole operation. If you are a J in the Myers-Briggs system, so there are 8 personality types that are Js. If you are a J in the Myers-Briggs system, that means that you organize externally, all right? You prefer outer world organization. The technical name for this is extroverted judging, all right? And that means that you want your organization to be in the outside world around you. So use extroverted judging. So if you are a J in the Myers-Briggs system, next to the T or the F, put a little E, indicating that you are extroverting or externalizing your desired organization. If you're a P in the Myers-Briggs system, so there are 8 personality types that are Ps, that means you like to organize internally. You turn your judging function inside or introverted. So the technical name for this is introverted judging. So all perceivers organize internally. So next to your little T or F in your 4-letter code, put a little I next to it. So you won't have an E and an I next to the T or F. You will only have one because you are either a judger or a perceiver. So make that little annotation. I am going to check the chat room just to see, is everybody caught up? Does that all make sense?
Yep.
All right.
Looks like people are good.
Cool. All right. Awesome. All right. So if you are a J, it means you want your freedom in the internal world, meaning that you're sensing or intuition. Now, remember, we're calling this freedom because sensing and intuition as perceiving functions, they don't have any should statements living inside of them, meaning that they're not making any decisions ultimately. This is where you want your freedom, wherever your sensing or your intuition are, because you want the freedom to be able to think whatever you're thinking or explore whatever you're exploring. There's no containers that you want to put around sensing or intuition if you are, whichever world that is for you. So that's where you want your freedom. Your organization is where you want your should to live. That's where you want your judgments to live. And your sensing or intuition is where you want your freedom to live. So if you're a judger, Because you put a little E next to your T or F, you want your organization in the outside world. It means you want your freedom in the inside world. All right. So you put a little I, indicating introversion for sensing or intuition. All right. And that makes sense because every human being wants both organization and freedom. We all have to have both. It's just which world we prefer it in. And the technical name for these different worlds, the internal or introverted or the external or extroverted, are called attitudes. All right. That's their technical name, is the attitude. So if you're a judger, your judging process, T or F, will have an extroverted attitude. And if you're a judger, your perceiving or freedom desiring part of you will be introverted. And that makes sense. You can't have you can't have your freedom and your organization vying for the same space. So we automatically reverse it. We automatically have freedom in the other attitude opposite for where we have organization. And for perceivers, it works in reverse. Because they had an internalized or introverted attitude on their judging function, on thinking and feeling, it means they like their freedom to be in the external space and the extroverted attitude. And so their sensing or intuitive function is always going to be turned outward. It's going to be externalized or extroverted. And that's how you figure out which cognitive functions you're using. All right. So if you look at your 4-letter code, what do you have at the end? What is the last piece of bread, right? Is it a J or P? And then you know where to put the little E and where to put the little I. This will inform which functions that you are using. All right. Did that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Nobody's confused. Awesome. All right. Just making sure. All right. So let's look at this in real time, because the next question is, well, now I know which functions I'm using. Which one do I prefer, right? Which one is my favorite function, or what's technically called my dominant function? And how do I figure out which one is my auxiliary function or my supplemental function? Because now I know which ones I'm using, but which one am I using more strong than the other? So we'll figure out which one of those two will be the dominant and the auxiliary. And then we'll figure out what's called your tertiary and your inferior in just a moment. Okay, but let's use ESTJ as an example. So to figure out what your favorite process is, you look to the first piece of bread in the 4-letter code. All right. So now we're looking at the E. Now it's become relevant whether or not you're an extrovert or an introvert. And the reason for this is that as a judger, if you're an ESTJ, as a judger, that means you externalize or extrovert your judging function, which is that T. So you, as a judger, automatically extrovert your thinking process. So now you know you use extroverted thinking, which is very handy. And because you can't occupy, or you can't have organization vying for both worlds, both internal and or sensing and thinking, since you use extrovert thinking, you automatically prefer freedom in your sensing process, or excuse me, in your introverted world. So extroverted thinking, introverted sensing. All right. So now you know which two functions you're using. And of course, if you were a P, it would be in reverse. Your thinking would be introverted and your sensing would be extroverted. But it's always the opposite. And the reason why for that is we all need to be able to do 4 things. And I haven't established this, so I should probably do it now. Every human being needs to be able to do 4 things. We all need a way to take in new information and ruminate on it and understand it. And we all need a way to make decisions based on that information. We also need a way to access our internal world, our introverted space, and know who we are. And we need a way to be able to take in outer world feedback. So we all have those 4 needs. And those 2 functions give us all 4 of those things. It gives us a way to interact with our inner world, and the other function automatically gives us a way to get outer world feedback. And one of those functions will give us a way to take in information or ruminate on it and understand it. And the other function will give us an ability to make decisions based on that process, or make decisions based on that function. All right, so we've got all 4 of them. Now, all 4 of those needs occupied with just 2 functions. But that's why we need both. That's why we can't just rely on one function, because one function will only give us those, like 2 of those abilities. So that's why we need those 2 in conjunction with each other. But the question now becomes, all right, so I know which 2 functions I'm using. Which one is my favorite? Well, because you're an extrovert, if you're an ESTJ, that means that you automatically favor the extroverted function. So whichever of the 2 is extroverted, that is going to be your favorite. And then that means for you, extroverted thinking, or what we call here at Personality Hacker effectiveness, that will be your dominant or your favored function. And that means the other is automatically your auxiliary function. Introverted sensing automatically becomes, or what we call memory, automatically becomes your auxiliary process. So if you're an introvert, the opposite would be true. If I was talking to an ISTJ, it would mean that their introverted sensing process would be their dominant and their extroverted thinking would be their auxiliary. All right. So let's take me, for example. Let's do one more example. We just did ESTJ. Let's do NTP. What does a perceiver look like when we figure all this out? I'm an extrovert. So that means I prefer outer world over inner world. That's the world I'm going to favor as an extrovert. I'm an intuitive. It means that I prefer advanced pattern recognition. I'm a thinker. It means I decide using impersonal criteria or metrics. And I'm a perceiver, which means that I like my inner world to be organized and I like to have outer world freedom. So my perceiving process is, or excuse me, as a perceiver, it means I extrovert or externalize my understanding process. In this case, it's intuition. That's where I like my freedom. So I automatically put a little E next to my intuition because that's my preferred way of engaging with the world is through my intuition. And it means that I introvert or internalize my decision-making process. In this case, thinking. So after I put a little E next to my intuition, then I put a little I next to my thinking. And which one is my favorite? Well, I'm an extrovert. So I favor my extroverted process, in this case, intuition. And that makes extroverted intuition my driver function. And then I automatically know that by default, my introverted process becomes my supportive process or my auxiliary or the co-pilot. So now I know my driver or dominant function is extroverted intuition, or what we call exploration. And my auxiliary process or my co-pilot is introverted thinking, or what we call accuracy. All right, so that's making sense to everybody? Yeah, that makes sense? Okay, cool. All right, is this new information for anybody? For some people, this is gonna be stuff that you already know how to do. All right, for some people, this is new. Okay, some people already understand how to take cognitive functions. New info for you? Cool, all right. All right, refreshers, that nuclear basic plan. Okay, cool. All right, so how do we figure out what our 10-year-old or tertiary function is and the 3-year-old or the inferior process? So we like to use a car model, right? We like to talk about the driver as the dominant, the co-pilot as auxiliary, the 10-year-old is the tertiary function, and the 3-year-old as the inferior function. And we think that this just makes it clearer, like a good metaphor for being able to understand what's technically called your cognitive function stack. All right, so how do we figure out what the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old or your tertiary and inferior are? It's actually incredibly easy. All we do is we take the reverse opposite of the function that sits above it. All right, in this case, my co-pilot is introverted thinking, or what we call accuracy. In order to figure out my 10-year-old, I simply take its mirror opposite, or what we call its polarity opposite. In this case, since introverted thinking is my co-pilot, that makes extroverted feeling or harmony my 10-year-old, because extroverted is the opposite of introverted and feeling is the opposite of thinking, all right, in this way. So extroverted feeling is the polarity opposite of introverted thinking. And since I already know what my co-pilot is, it means I automatically know what my 10-year-old is simply by reversing it. So if my driver is extroverted intuition, I do the exact same thing. I just find its reverse polarity opposite, which would be introverted sensing. Introverted sensing is the polarity opposite of extroverted intuition. And now I have all 4 functions in my cognitive function stack, or what we call the CAR model. It's actually quite simple. Sometimes it seems like a high barrier of entry for some people who are getting into Myers-Briggs. If Myers-Briggs is new for you, and this is one of those things that's made it so that you've had a little bit of challenge with cognitive functions, it's usually because it all feels so complicated, right? The same words are being used to mean slightly different things, but similar enough things so that it's confusing. Like, what's the difference between a judger and a judging function, right? Am I automatically using judging functions if I'm a judger, or how does that work? What's a perceiving function? Does that mean that I'm a perceiver if I have a perceiving function? So the challenge here is that a lot of the same language is used to mean almost, but not quite the same thing. And that makes it very difficult. But one of the easy ways to remember this is that that 4th letter, J or P, is to some extent the key to the whole operation. And if you remember this, it makes it a little easier. You are a judger if the world sees your judging function. What does that mean? Well, judgers extrovert their judging function. They're blasting it outward. It's obvious to other people, right? Because they're externalizing it or extroverting their judging function. So people who are onlookers could go, I mean, if they know the system, they can go, oh, that's a judger because I see or experience their judging function. Perceivers are the opposite. Perceivers extrovert their perceiving function of intuition or sensing. And so that becomes obvious to the outside world because that's what they're blasting out to the world. They are perceivers because the world experiences of them the most, their perceiving function. So that's pretty much the whole reason why you're called a judge or a perceiver. You're called a judge or a perceiver because the world is experiencing your judging or perceiving function because that's going to be extroverted for you. All right. Does that make a little bit of sense for those that you, does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it does.
All right, cool. All right, so that is a little bit of a taste of the Profiler Training Certification course now, or excuse me, the Profiler Training Intensive course that we've changed it to. Profiler Training is, it's meant for people who start at all different levels. You can be somebody who, this is the first time you've ever heard of cognitive functions, and this was the first time you ever heard cognitive functions were such of a thing, and all you're used to is the four dichotomies, extrovert, introvert, sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, and judging, perceiving. And it's also for people who are intermediate, where this would have been a refresher for them. It's intended to help people at all different levels of understanding Myers-Briggs do one thing extremely well, and that is master the skill of profiling. Now, what profiling is it's not simply becoming the human version of an online test, all right? It's not simply being able to ask people a series of questions like, what rules you more, your head or your heart? And then if a person says heart, you go, oh, I know they're a feeler. The point of mastering the skill of profiling is to be able to sit across from somebody and in a very casual conversation that is led by you, we call it conversational profiling, in a very casual conversation, know with a high degree of certainty what the person's Myers-Briggs type is. It is intended to help other people find their best fit type. Now, a best fit type is a type that a person identifies with the strongest, and it feels so natural to them. It feels so native to them to identify with this type. It's like putting on a glove that fits for the first time. Mastering the skill of profiling means that you have to have a strong concept of theory, right? The theory of the system, the theory of Myers-Briggs, the theory of cognitive functions. We talked a little bit about polarities. There's a whole concept around polarities, which are the pairing of opposites, like introverted thinking, extroverted feeling would be a pairing of opposites. They make up a polarity. It's a matter of figuring out all of this theory, but then even more importantly, way more importantly than being able to consume content around the theory is being able to implement the practice of profiling. The practice of profiling is a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science. There's a lot of theory that goes behind it, but simply consuming the theory is not enough. There are people who have read every Myers-Briggs book out there, understand the theory inside and out, but still struggle sometimes to even know what their own type is, right? They've read every book and they still don't know what their personality type is. Or they talk to somebody and they realize a couple years in that they got their type completely wrong, even though they're a person who has read literally everything from cover to cover. And so profiling is in and of itself a very specific skill that takes a lot of practice. And what we've done in the Profiler Training Intensive course is we have created a system, a comprehensive system that helps you get to a place from simply understanding the theory of Myers-Briggs and cognitive functions to a place where with a very high degree of accuracy, you can sit down, have a conversation with somebody and be able to determine their best fit type. So how do you reach mastery? In any skill, how do you reach mastery? Well, you need to meet 3 conditions.
Condition number 1, I guess I need to start talking.
Yeah. I'm done with my teaching thing. If you want to jump in, please feel free.
If I let you go, you'd go forever. But
always.
Condition number 1, you need to turn knowledge into skill through deliberate practice. So like Antonia talks about this idea of, let's liken this to like learning a language, right? If you could read French or write French, but in order to speak French, there's the ability of practicing using the words, speaking to people, messing up, getting calibration, understanding how you said something incorrectly, I don't speak French, so I just pick this random one because I don't do it. And then you get feedback. You basically figure out how to speak French by speaking French. So you get deliberate practice through this of applying the French language to something, and that's how you learn, right? You deliberately practice this. So you have a specific plan for what to practice and how to practice. You have benchmarks and milestones you're aiming for, and a schedule to follow that helps you turn the knowledge you have into skills you can perform. So again, if you're learning a language, you would learn how to read the grammar, all the structure of it, but then you'd actually apply it in the real world to understand how you're doing, right? You'd have to have a plan to do that. So we have a plan for this to help you do profiling, and that is condition number 1, to master something. Condition number 2, receiving credible feedback from qualified peers, coaches, and mentors. So again, because without the right feedback mechanisms from the right people, which is really important, if you're practicing on French on somebody that doesn't speak French, you're going to get good feedback, right? But if you practice it in France or a country that has that as the language, you're going to get correct feedback from the right people that can help you calibrate that language in real time. So you're getting it back from the actual native speakers. So in profiling, you have to be able to calibrate against people who understand how profiling works, how you're on the mark or off the mark. So calibration is really important, credible feedback, and getting that from coaches and mentors that know what they're doing.
Speaking of which, you sing in fake French so convincingly, I have no idea if you actually are singing your real song or not.
I can't speak fake French, but I can sing fake French. It's really weird.
He does. It's amazing.
It's not real at all.
No, it's not. But I would never know. And that's why the condition number 2 is so important, is that if you are around somebody who, say, doesn't speak French and you very convincingly sing in fake French, the person will be like, that's a beautiful song. What are you saying? And you could literally make up anything you want to. But if you're talking to somebody who actually speaks French, they're going to go, what are you doing? You're just stringing syllables together and you said nothing. Or maybe you said something really offensive and you don't even know. So that's one of the reasons why having credible feedback is so important, is that as you're doing your deliberate practice, you need to have other people who have been in the field for a while be able to reflect back to you whether or not you're singing fake French or if you are actually picking up this language.
Both myself and my daughter are ENFPs. And so Antonia mentioned one time, she said, living with us is like living in a real life musical at all times. Yeah. Because we just randomly do things like that, I guess.
Yeah, I've had to learn to like living in a musical because as an ENTP, I always found musicals to be kind of off-putting. But I love my life. I love being around you guys.
Even if we gang up on you?
Even if you gang up on me and force me into a musical. All right. Condition number 3, tapping into a community to stay accountable. Community keeps you motivated, inspired. It helps you follow through with your deliberate practice until you've reached mastery. All right. So one of the major things you can do when you say you're learning a new language like French is that you can tap into a community of other people who are attempting to learn the same skill and or currently speak it. And that community becomes really important because when you say disappear, everybody else notices, hey, where'd that one person who's trying to learn French go, right? So it's really important to not only have deliberate practice and also have people you can calibrate against, but also have people you can be inspired with, people who are going through the same process that you're going through at the same time. So in the current Personality Hacker Intensive, we've addressed all 3 of these needs. And here's a major departure between what we're doing now and what we've done in the past. In the past, we've always made profiler training into a 6 to 1 year process. And we had syllabuses where a person could go through the information in about, I think the fastest was over 3 or 4 months. We had syllabuses that had a 6-month schedule, and then we had a syllabus that had a 1-year schedule. And so that kind of allowed people to go at their own pace. And we got some amazing certified profilers from that methodology. We have a growing list of certified profilers. We have about 150 or more people as alumni.
We have a couple people that work with us now as actual consultants on our team.
That came
from
through
those classes.
Right. Yeah. That came through profiler training. So we've got like a lot of amazing people who've gone through this course and truly mastered it, which is awesome. And that there have been holes in the previous style. There's been challenges with being able to really get that in-person live feedback. And what we've set up mentors in the past, and we've set up classes, like little groups of people in the past, but there's still a challenge always in getting that real calibration. So in order to accommodate for that, what we've decided to do is we've decided to take profiler training into a level of being an intensive. Profiler training is now a 5-day live immersion event to help you calibrate and master the skill of being a personality profiler in person with us. So Profiler training is now officially a live 5-day event, live in person, in a conference room, all together learning this skill. So what you can expect.
So I just want to make a brief comment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We sat down and basically determined that, by the way, there's a rainbow outside. It's raining. That's really cool.
Yeah, there is.
We sat down and determined that one of the best ways to do this, like Antonia said, was a live format. We really think this is going to be helpful because in a live format, what ends up happening is we can go through the profiling sessions with you and sit alongside of you and help calibrate these and work through it. And we're going to talk about what this live event looks like in a minute here in specificity. But we really believe that putting this in an intensive framework, being able to stack the learning over several days in real time with us on the ground, some of the other mentors that we have that will be available and other people that can help teach this in a live format will be the best way to really lock into learning this skill and being able to replicate it in your life. So I don't want to undervalue this live event piece. This is like really, we've been basically 6 years in the making toward this. We really feel every single iteration of profiler training, like Antonia mentioned, we've been tweaking and adjusting to continually improve and push the needle on what we can deliver for students. Each class keeps getting better and better and better. And we believe that this live event is another piece we're adding now. This is the piece, this is the crux of what we're adding that's going to deliver this at a high level. So I just want to make sure that we make a comment about that this is probably going to move the needle for you more than anything else we've done up to this point. Each class keeps getting better and better, and we're going to keep iterating on the classes that come in the future too.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what's in the actual live event.
So in the 5-day live event, one of the things we'll be doing is reviewing and augmenting the digital content. The digital content isn't going anywhere. And in fact, we'll talk a little bit about what part the digital content plays, because that's always been the majority of what profiler training was built on in the past. But now profiler training is the focus of it is this 5-day live immersive event. But that means that you will have to come with a little bit of information in your belt. So what we'll be doing is we'll be reviewing and augmenting and kind of putting together all of that digital content. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in a moment. We'll also be doing embodying exercises about the cognitive functions. So it's not just a theoretical thing. You're actually embodying the functions themselves. So you get a sense of what it feels like to be in that function, to be a person who uses that all the time, might even be blind to their use of those cognitive functions. But you get into an embodied space where you can really kind of feel what it must be like and then start identifying it in other people.
This has been a really powerful exercise. We've done a lot of these things in our small 2-day calibration events. And when you embody functions, if this is not a function you use, there's 8 cognitive functions. And so if it's a function you don't use, we have exercises to help you get in the mindset of that function, really helping you understand what the other person you might be profiling is feeling, experiencing, thinking, feeling, how they're experiencing what that function looks like for them. And this can be really powerful because if you can feel it in yourself, or you can think it for yourself, or experience it yourself, you're able to start getting to somebody else's perspective as you're profiling. So we take some time and some exercises, and it's actually pretty fun. Some of the exercises we do, getting you out of your comfort zone if it's one of the functions you're not used to. And some of these functions are things maybe you've never accessed before in a really pragmatic and proactive way. So you get a glimpse into what the experience for the other is.
We also do profiling sessions in front of you live, a couple of example profiling sessions. You'll be watching myself do profiling, and especially what we call conversational profiling, which is basically that's the magnet in the middle of the field. Conversational profiling, when you get out of asking direct questions and more leading questions and allowing the person to open up and reveal their cognitive functions and their mental wiring to you just by the language they're using, just by the turn of phrase, just by how they're experiencing the world and talking about their experiences of the world. That's conversational profiling, and that's the magnet in the middle of the field. That's what everybody is trying to get to and master. And what you'll be able to see is live conversational profiling sessions in front of you to be able to basically model them and look for different techniques that you can incorporate into your own profiling.
What's great about conversational profiling is when you master that, you can be on an airplane or just out among your day having conversations with people basically profiling them without them even understanding or knowing that you're doing that, because you're just through general conversation. You're not altering how you would talk. You're just watching for the ways that you're saying things and people are responding to you, and you're profiling people almost in real time through this. So this is a skill that you can take throughout your life, whether it's at work, at school, in your family, just out about in the world when you're meeting people and connecting with them. It's a really powerful way to be profiling throughout your life. So we'll start with some pragmatic ways to do it, like some basic ways to do it, and expand out to the conversational piece.
It also makes you a generally better conversationalist because you learn how to talk to people. And in fact, that's part of the curriculum, is teaching you how to have a conversation with somebody, to build rapport with them, to make them feel safe in your presence, to make it so that you're doing what we call securing the perimeter. Securing the perimeter is making a person feel safe in the conversational space so that they know that you've got their back. And then it makes you a lot more interesting of a person, because you are very interested in the other person and you're asking all the right questions to help them, basically tell you how to reach them. The biggest thing that we want to encourage in profiler training is meeting people where they're at, playing in other people's sandboxes, not requiring everybody to meet you where you're at, but actually recognizing that everybody has a different experience, and being able to figure out how they're experiencing their world by understanding how they're wired on a very deep level. So the conversational profiling not only helps you profile, but it also helps you become a good conversationalist and meet people where they're at.
If you look at this picture on the screen, the next bullet point is set up with volunteers to be profiled. This is Susan on the right side. She's a profiler training student. This was at one of our calibration events for her class that year that she was taking the course. And Tarek is on the other side of her. And this is an actual profiling session they're in the middle of. So we got a picture of that to showcase to you what we'll be setting you up with. Tarek was a volunteer that day. He's become since a friend and somebody we know now. But he came to be a volunteer that day for Susan to practice with. And she was able to do this, and then we're able to move through the room and help answer questions for Susan as she's practicing her skill in real time with a volunteer. She can ask us questions. We can help calibrate her. It's a really great feedback loop in real time, so that you don't have to go away necessarily and do this and then come back, a week or two later. You're doing this in real time at the live event, which is really powerful to make certain aspects of the profiling stick for you.
So we set you up with volunteers to be profiled. One of the great things is that when we send an email out to people going, hey, we're looking for volunteers to be profiled, we usually have 1 million people who are like, I'll be profiled. So it's really great, because what we do then is we bring the personality hacker community together. It almost becomes like a meetup. And then people who listen to the podcast and are fans of it and members of the community, then even if they're not profiler training students, then they get to come in and meet other profiler training students. And then it's really exciting. And actually, what's interesting is that previous volunteers from the past have signed up to the next profiler training courses because they enjoyed the process so much. So it's a really cool community that end up getting formed, not just among the students and the alumni, but also amongst the volunteers.
And then after these sessions, what we end up doing is we do what's called a hot seat. So Antonia, myself, and maybe some other mentors or other profilers might be on stage. And what we do is, if you have questions about the sessions that you've done, the profiling sessions you've done, real time at the event, or some of the other exercises we've done, what we'll do is we'll call you up on stage to do what's called a hot seat. You sit in a seat on stage, and in real time, we workshop maybe a challenge you had in that session, or maybe questions you had that came up. Like, hey, this person was really resistant to me asking these questions, or this person was super, over the top in this way, acting extroverted, but I'm sure my instincts say introvert, whatever the question might be. And we might walk through those questions with you live on stage. Not only are you getting the benefit of that, but the entire audience, the entire group of students is also getting the benefit of these hot seat moments for us to calibrate again and to workshop troubleshooting, questions you might have, other things that come up in these sessions.
One of the very first people who sat in our hot seat was somebody who became one of our consultants, Catlin. Catlin is now a consultant for Personality Hacker. Yeah. And she started out as a person who came up in a hot seat with a very difficult profiling session. So these hot seats are extremely valuable. They're really good for calibration. And sometimes people can feel shy and go, oh no, a hot seat. But those hot seats are some of the most valuable things that you can be doing. And we're going to offer them many times throughout the 5-day intensive. And of course, you're connecting with your fellow students and alumni. Alumni will be coming to this event too, because they will also want to get in on the learning. They'll want to get in on doing profiling sessions with you. And so it won't just be you and your fellow students. and the people you go through the curriculum with. It will also be alumni will be there. And so people will be at varying levels of learning, at varying levels of expertise. And what's great about that is that you don't just have us to model, but you also have alumni to model. People have been doing it for a while, sometimes many years. And they come to all of our events because they just like being part of the alumni. And so you'll get the advantage of people who have been doing this for a while too, and build relationships with like-minded people. And it's a pretty cool thing. All right, but to prepare for the 5-day intensive, you're gonna need 4 things. You're gonna need a solid understanding of the system and theory. You're gonna need calibration to know that you're on the right track even before you show up. You're gonna need community support to keep you motivated, and you're gonna need to get your answers or questions answered. Get answers to your questions as you learn. I actually did write that down in a grammatically correct way, but every time I read it, it looked wrong. So anyway.
So get on those 4 things, okay?
Right, yeah, and then be ready, right? No, well, we're on it, all right? We know that these are the things you're gonna need if you come to the live 5-day events and if you choose to sign up for Profiler training. So what we've done is we've addressed each of these needs with bonuses. And what we have done is turned the Profiler training video curriculum into a bonus, meaning that the 40-plus session courses, which were originally the core content, are now a bonus for you to prepare for the 5-day event. The modules cover the 4 dichotomies, the 8 cognitive functions, the 16 personality types, the 4 temperaments, the 4 polarities, right? The pairing of opposites that each of the functions are a part of. Our proprietary firm model, which is something that you may not have heard us talk about because we only really talk about it at this point in our premium content.
It'll be in our new book.
It will be in our new book, which is coming out this year. But until the book comes out, this is the only time that you can really learn our proprietary firm model. And the firm model is a very interesting model that helps you figure out a lot of diagnostics about each individual. You also figure out the defense strategies for each type. You figure out how to accurately live and passive profile. So there's 2 different styles of profiling. One is called live profiling, which is when you're actually in a conversation with somebody, you're asking them questions. Everybody starts out with starter questions, but eventually ends up at conversational profiling. But that's considered a live profiling session where the other person is like participating and they actually know you're talking to them to try to figure out their type. And then there's passive profiling. Passive profiling is when you sit back and you're not directly engaged with the individual. You're just observing their behavior and language and some of the different things that they do. And you learn passive profiling techniques as well in things like what we call our commentaries. We'll take episodes from different TV shows. We've done Firefly episodes and Better Call Saul episodes, and there's one Master of None.
Yeah.
And we take these episodes and then you hear us passively profile the characters within each of these episodes. It's pretty fun. So, and the community that has been built of 150 to 200 alumni regularly get together to talk about different TV shows and different YouTube videos to do passive profiling. So you learn both accurate live profiling and also accurate passive profiling. There are over 40 trainings in the core content. We give you a 3-month syllabus to guide your learning, and that is why it's called an intensive and an immersive. Before, we used to have a 6-month to a year-long syllabus. This is going to be a lot tighter of a schedule, but it's only going to take 3 months, and then the grand crescendo is the 5-day live profiling event. So you get 3 months of syllabus to consume these 40 sessions. You get a rich, vibrant community of fellow students, and you get membership to our private profiler Facebook group, which is actually secret. It's not just closed, it's secret. We opening up it used to be just once a year when people signed on to profiler training, but now it will be twice a year because we have a midway class as well. All right, so that's our first bonus. Our first bonus is getting you prepared for this 5-day event by getting you immersed in the content and the theory of it. You will know the system and the theory inside and out before you come to the event. The second need is calibration to make sure that you're on the right track. And what we have done is set up.
I love this photo of you.
Thank you. We've set up what we call calibration hangouts. All right. We have a subscription to Zoom, as you know, because you're currently on Zoom, and we use Zoom once a month to do calibration hangouts. These hangouts are where you show up and we do a virtual video session where we review audio and video clips to spot nuances of how type shows up. So what does that mean? It means that if 2 people have been arguing about a YouTube video, it's like, what personality type is this person? I think he's an INTP. No, he's definitely an INTJ. Well, that's what you bring to these calibration hangouts. And we watch a clip, approximately 3 to 5 minutes. And then we talk about some of the things that are revealing the person's best fit type. How do we know whether or not the person's an INTP or an INTJ? What are some of the clues that are telling us which type that they are? Is it in their mannerism? Is it in how they're speaking? Is it how they're dressing or sitting? And so that's what the calibration hangouts do, is it helps make sure that you're on the right track when you're doing passive profiling.
And just to make it clear, we were very, in the course and the live events, so in the course work, like the digital content and live event and all these calibration calls or these hangouts, we're process focused. So regardless of that person she's talking about as an INTP or INTJ, the important thing is to talk about the process of what we're looking for the markers of that. So these are really focused on calibrating the process of how you think about typing people, not just trying to get to a right answer. It's more of showing the work behind getting to the right answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So obviously, if it's a video clip, we can't know for sure without actually doing an active profiling session with that person. So we focus in on the process of how you're asking the questions you're asking and how you're triangulating to get to where you're guessing that person's type. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Bonus number 3, I'll speak now. Private Facebook groups. We mentioned this in the digital content, but this is really important. And that's why I've highlighted as a bonus, because you'll be added to our private profiler training Facebook group to connect with fellow students and alumni. And this is important because without a supportive community of other like minds, people that are learning alongside of you, it can feel isolating. It can feel like you're out there alone. I mean, we're here to be supportive. We have calibration hangouts. We're going to talk about another bonus where we're answering some of your questions and things. We're also showing up to the live event, but it's a great experience to have study buddies or people that you can learn alongside of, people that have gone through the course before that can help maybe answer questions, be available just for quick, like, hey, I'm asking this about this type, I'm thinking about this, what do you think? And alumni can come and answer, or other students can come and answer and be a part of the community in Facebook. So this private group is just for profiler training students, alumni and current students, to be able to talk about the issues and the things that they're learning. And it's really important for that community. And what's exciting about when you come to the 5-day event, you have already built some online relationships with fellow students. So you get to the live event, now you already know people. You don't come completely cold to that live event. You already have a little tribe formed, maybe a little group of study buddies that you've studied with for a while, or a larger group of people that you have connected with or gotten to know. It's really exciting to see people that know each other from online getting to come to a live event and connecting in real life, and lifelong friendships have been formed from this. We've had a lot of people connect with each other, and now they're great friends, and they love hanging out, and they're into the same kind of stuff, and it's been a great community we've been able to build inside of profiler training. So we're really excited about this piece, the community piece.
We've even had people fall in love with profiler training. Not that I can promise that, but there have been relationships that have formed from profiler training. So it's a really cool, inclusive group. We always attract the coolest people. Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me, the amazingness of the people who show up to profiler training. It's probably, I would say that it's the #1 incentive for a lot of people to stick around, because it's a lot of courses. Once you're done learning the information, you move on to the next course, right? Especially if you're a person who does a lot of online courses. But I've noticed that people have a tendency to not just move on from profiler training. They stick around. We have people who are still coming to our Q&As like 4 years later.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because it's just so fun to be a part of profiler training. So it's one of the major incentives, is that we have a really thriving community of really amazing people that like always impress us. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the kinds of people that you'll meet in profiler
So 4
training.
things: the content, like really understanding the system and theory, getting calibration, being part of a community, and the last one is solve with a bonus of live question and answer calls once a month. So we also do this through Zoom. And these are a little different than calibration. So we're not going to look at a clip and talk about the process or calibrating the process of profiling. These are when you bring your questions. And usually I ask people to frame it in 3 questions when you come to a Q&A, is ask yourself, what have you been working on since the last time we talked last month? What are things you want to celebrate? Something maybe you had an aha around, something you really got a handle of, you understood, you've been working on this and you're really excited to celebrate it. So you want to report it or have a time to share it, and we can celebrate with you. The other thing is projecting into the future what you're going to work on between now and the next time we talk. So here's something that I think I'm going to focus on in the next 30 days or the next 2 weeks. I'm going to focus on introvert or extrovert, or I'm going to focus on really understanding the judging functions, or whatever it is. You can ask for maybe help. So if I'm going to focus on this, what should I be doing? So you can ask a question around that. And obviously, the third thing is things that are sticking points, challenges for you. What is coming up for you you're having trouble getting through or understanding or helping to maybe make a nuance around? So there's a little bit of calibration there, but these are your questions to calibrate against, not just like a clip or a video or some typing issue. This is the question, and it could be any question. And alumni are also invited to come to these as well. So you'd be able to access these, for a long period of time after the live event to keep asking questions and be a part of the Q&A format once a month to get those questions answered.
We've been doing a monthly Q&A for 7 years.
Yeah.
For 7 years, we've been doing a monthly Q&A. The only times we take off is December. Probably now June. Maybe. But no, we didn't even.
We'll probably roll through.
No, we actually did one in June too. So we've been doing monthly Q&As forever, and we're going to do them in perpetuity. So that's the nice thing about being a part of profiler training, is that it just keeps going. It just keeps going, and we just keep adding new content, new bonuses. All those Q&As get uploaded into the back end, so you have access to, I think it's actually at this point like 70 hours worth of Q&As, which I don't recommend going back into, but you can if you want to.
What's nice is after we upload them, we usually go back and have someone in the next, within a week or two, timestamp them.
Yeah.
Not all the way back like 7 years ago, but several of the years back. You can go through by topic and find the timestamp and listen to that question. If you find a question and you're like, oh, I want to go hear that question, it's a great format for you to go ahead and listen to other people's questions that are relevant to you.
Definitely. So all 4 things that you're going to need, we got you covered. We've got the system covered, the system in theory, and a syllabus for you to go through it in order to be up to speed by the time you get to the 5-day event. We've got the calibration calls that are going to happen once a month. We have the Q&As that are happening once a month. So if you get the rhythm, it's going to be every other week, right? You've got every second week, or every other week, not every second week, but every other week, you're going to have access to us to talk about calibration or to talk about Q&A, and access to the rest of the students in a format where you can engage directly. So we've got you covered on that as well. And we have a community that you can plug into in Facebook and cross-pollinate ideas and find study buddies and find people that are really amazing to help you get through it. So we've got you covered before you get to the 5-day event. Because remember, it's all culminating in that 5-day event. Profiler training is now a 5-day immersive event with with an amount of coursework beforehand to prepare you for that event. All right. So who's profiler training for? Well, it's created for 2 types of people. It's created for profile enthusiasts who are looking to improve and calibrate their profiling skills. So let's say you've been studying typology for a while. You're super into type, you've read all the books, but you are looking for ways to get really accurate. You're looking for practical techniques to get accurate and quick at your profiling. You are familiar with the concepts, but you don't have any place to practice, right? You're not really sure what questions to ask, or maybe you've worked out some questions, but you're not 100% sure of, what the answers mean yet. And you just want to get really good at identifying what you should be looking for when you're asking people certain questions.
You've been talking to your mom and you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
She doesn't know enough. I need somebody that knows what they're doing because I can't calibrate against my mom.
Exactly. You need a comprehensive system that integrates all of these concepts you've been reading. You've been reading about inferior grips over here, and then you've been reading about loops over the dominant tertiary loops over here, and you've been reading about functions over here, and you've been reading about dichotomies, and you've got all of these concepts, but you want one comprehensive system that brings it all together and makes it manageable and applicable in a conversation. So it's not just a matter of trying to keep all these pieces of information in your head. That will always happen, but you're looking for a cohesive system, one that brings it all together so that you can use all of these learnings in a session or in a conversation to be able to determine somebody's type. And you're looking for a supportive peer group. All right. You're looking for somebody who, or looking for a place of like-minded people who love to talk about this stuff all the time, like you love to talk about it, who are as obsessed with it as you are. And so if that is you, if you're an enthusiast that just wants to be able to get really good at this, then profiler training is right for you.
The second type of person is a profiler careerist who are looking to pursue a career related to typology. So these are people maybe that are in a company that want to step into a leadership role or utilize this in their company. Maybe you're wanting to start a coaching practice and we have a lot of coaches that have taken profiler training to begin to weave profiling into their coaching practice. It's just another tool they've added as they're coaching people. Maybe they're a life coach or a particular health coach or whatever. It really helps them tailor their coaching message to the person they're talking to. They would talk to an INTJ very different than an ESFP, for example, when they're coaching them maybe in health, because they're going to have different needs. And by knowing type, it really helps them in their practice.
We have a coach who's also a Jungian analyst who uses profiling when she's a therapist for people who have eating disorders. And so she's used profiling to be able to make sure that the recommendations she's giving to people who have eating disorders are in alignment with their function stack, because based on their type, what's called type dynamics, or how their cognitive functions are relating to each other, they might have completely different reasons for having an eating disorder. So we have people who are like coaches who use it for that means.
We have, we're going to talk about him in a minute here, someone in law enforcement who's a crisis negotiator who basically has used this system, profiling, to better help in crisis negotiations and with the law enforcement activities that he's involved with. So it's really helping him. It really helped him get an understanding of how people are ticking when he's talking to them in real time and the pressure's on. It gives him a mechanism to be able to quickly profile people. So these are just some examples of ways that people are using the system in their current careers. But again, if you are looking to do this in any professional setting, if you're a typology careerist, whether it's directly applicable to what you're doing, like a coach or something like this, or even law enforcement, or you just want to have this skill as you're working through your corporate life or your corporate career track, these are powerful things for you to know. Talking to a boss you want to raise, knowing how to talk to that person and pitch it to a way that makes sense for their personality is a powerful tool. So these are just some ways that people have used this. And this is the second type of person, the careerist that really wants to use this in their current job or career that they've chosen.
All right. So if you're a person who would like to use typology professionally, then profiler training is probably right for you too. So let's talk a little bit about commonly asked questions about the profiler training intensive. We haven't had a lot of questions about the intensive because the intensive is something that we're rolling out new, but we have traditionally had a lot of questions about profiler training in general. So let's go through some of the most commonly asked questions about profiler training and see if they answer some of your questions.
Some of these are anticipated. So if you have more, after we're done with all this, when we get to near the end, we're going to do a Q&A part of this. So there's two types of questions. There'll be Q&A questions about the profiler training that we're going to address first, and then we'll talk about some other questions after that as well. Go ahead, let's roll into this now.
So how is this different from the material on the podcast? You're a podcast listener. Maybe you've listened to all of our podcasts, all 5 years. Has it been 5 years or something like that? All 200 episodes you've listened to. How is it different from the podcast? Well, it's completely and utterly different from the podcast. In the podcast, we talk about things that we believe are applicable to the individual. So we give recommendations based on different personality types and how to deal with like right now we're doing a series on auxiliary cognitive functions and how to develop your co-pilot. So in the podcast, we do things that we hope are applicable and will move the needle for individuals. This is totally different. This is about learning a comprehensive system. This is about specifically developing a skill. So it's not just a matter of learning more information. You can join profiler training if you want to just learn more information. We won't stop you. But what we're really looking for is we're looking for people who are serious about developing the skill of profiling. That's the point. Being able to accurately and quickly determine somebody's best fit type in a conversational setting. That's what we're looking for. So the course material is designed to help you build a skill. It's not designed to just have generic information on type. It's specifically designed to create an algorithm for building that skill. And so all of the information is pushing you to do that. All the information is like, okay, this is how you use it for the skill. This is how you use it for the skill. And so it's a very different format and a very different goalpost than the podcast. So sometimes we have people ask, I'm in other courses, should I still join? In the past, we've said, well, if you're an overachiever, then maybe. This time around, we're recommending that you don't. If you're currently in other courses, if your mind is completely occupied in something else, maybe, this is actually a good time because most people have graduated and have a little bit of space from their studies. But if they're in college or university, but if you're enrolled in something else that's kind of intense, we recommend that you focus on that, right?
So take some time.
Yeah. And if we have great success in doing this intensive, then it won't be the last time we do it. And then you can maybe roll around in December and come back when you have a little bit more time and space open up. But this is an intensive immersive course, and it's probably going to occupy a lot of 3 months. And then it's going to require you to physically show up for a week. So our recommendation is that if you've got multiple things going on, then you use the power of full engagement and focus on those other things. And then maybe this course will be better for you the next time around.
How much time do I need to invest to learn this material? So this is going to take an investment. If you show up to the 5-day intensive and you haven't done anything and you come there, you're going to be overly disappointed because we're going to be doing a lot of practical things on the ground during those 5 days. So you'll need to invest some time before you get to those 5 days. So obviously you're going to need the 5 days scheduled out. You're going to need to block that off your schedule. But before that, we have the numbers worked out about how much we think it's going to take each week, roughly.
Roughly about five hours a week we recommend.
Yeah.
And some it runs between 5 to 10 hours a week. But I think you could probably get away with 5 hours a week.
Again, it's going to depend on your learning style, how quickly you learn, how much you're familiar with some of these concepts and theory beforehand, how much unlearning you might have to do, because we do teach this in a unique way. And some of the things maybe you've learned before could cause confusion because of how you've already been exposed to the Myers-Briggs system. So it really depends individually to you and how your style is and all that. But roughly between 5 and 10 hours, I think, is what you could bank on. But it will take an investment. Basically, I would say more than even time, it's energy cost. It's the energy you put into it. You get out what you put into something, right? So if you put a lot of intention and energy and focus, and you get really excited and addicted to this system and learning this and moving through it, and like really like start, working on profiling people around you, and you get through the material quickly, it's going to make the entire experience better for you than just casually a couple hours here and there. So the discipline, we have a syllabus that will help you move through this in a good fashion. And we have a little buffer at the end, so you have extra time to make up in case you had to miss a week or two. So it's not so tight to the wire, like right before you come to the live event, but it is something you're going to have to put some time and energy into. And I think it's going to be an energy cost. So that's something you need to consider when you apply to do the program, that energy will be required of you.
We went back and forth. We're like, can we do a 3-month syllabus? Is that something that can happen? And one of the reasons that helped us understand that, yes, we definitely can, is that a surprisingly large number of people who have done profiler training in the past have watched all 40 plus sessions within 2 weeks of getting the program.
Yeah.
As in they just binged it. And so it's actually not uncommon for people to do that anyway. So if you are nervous about not having the time, we recommend maybe not taking advantage of profiler training this time around. But if you've got a little bit of space, people find it addictive. And my apologies, but you will probably start hearing my voice in your dreams. It is a weird phenomenon that happens, and I'm sorry. I want to apologize and beforehand that you will be hearing my voice in your dreams. All right. But yes, it is a bit of an investment. So be sober-minded. If this is something you want to do, remember that is going to take a bit of time.
What type of people am I going to be learning with? Let's talk about some of these people. Basically, people from all walks of life. We have coaches, entrepreneurs, psychotherapists, professors, CEOs, obviously, like I said, crisis negotiators earlier, musicians. Scott was a musician. He's used the system to apply to other musicians, and he has an entire business he's built around helping musicians understand their personality types. There's a ton of different people that end up taking these courses. And really what's cool about it is some of these people, like, I've gotten to meet and understand more about their profession, and I had no idea how to access people. Like, for example, Greg, right, who's a crisis negotiator. I didn't know what that was like. I didn't know that career. But you're going to meet people like this that join the class, that join this grouping that you're going to join or you're going to apply to, and hopefully you'll be joining. And it's cool. I think it's a really neat cross section of people that you get to be a part of and learn next to.
Yeah, just a couple people who have become personal friends of ours and become just sort of the faces sometimes of personality or profiler training. Betsy Garman, who is an amazing person. We've actually mentioned her work on the podcast. She's a life coach and an artist, and she's an INFJ, and she's a fantastic profiler. She's a fantastic human being. And so we have people from all walks of life, including artists and coaches, and she's just a really cool person.
She's using profiler training in her coaching practice now.
That's right. And in her art, actually.
Yeah.
Greg is, as we mentioned, a law enforcement agent and a crisis negotiator. That means he talks people out of situations like suicide. And he took profiler training to get better at doing crisis negotiation, which he has now incorporated. And it's really cool because he sent us like a little a coin that made us like sort of honorary. It was like an honorary medallion from his units. Because crisis negotiation, he's done such a great job. And now everybody in his units is now thinking about doing a truncated version of profiler training because it's been so successful for him. And he's an ENFJ. And then we have Emily. Now, Emily is a musician, and she's not just a Spanish teacher. She actually built an entire business called Spanish with Emily. And so she teaches kids how to speak Spanish, and now she and her husband are on the road. But what's great about Emily is not only is she an amazing human being and a personal friend, she's also a sensor. Now, we have a tendency because of our intuitive awakening work to attract a lot of intuitives. But one of the questions we get sometimes is, well, do you just have intuitives in profile training? And the answer is no. We've actually had many sensors come through profiler training, and sometimes been our best profilers actually, because of how they consume information and how seriously some of them have taken it. And they don't try to reinvent the wheel sometimes. Sometimes, especially the center judges we've had have just done the system as we've recommended it, and they've become amazing profilers, which is great. So if you are a sensor and you're thinking about taking it, the answer to your question of, is it just intuitives? The answer is no, it's not just intuitives. We have plenty of sensors that have come through profiler training as well and done amazing.
You want to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
How much attention and feedback can I expect from instructors? So like we said, we've built in mechanisms for us to be involved with you. So we're talking about the live 5-day intensive, and Tony and myself will be there the entire time, blood, sweat, and tears, helping you get this down and get the actual skill of profiling live with people. We'll be there all day. There's like long day schedules that we're going to start planning to be able to impart this to you. And then building up to that, we have those calibration hangouts and we have the Q&A calls all the way through. And we're also active in Facebook from time to time. Alumni are there, and we come into Facebook helping to answer questions, helping to post little clips and other things that we're working on as far as, the typing process. And so we're going to be around helping you prepare for the 5-day intensive, and then we'll be on the ground live at the event during that 5-day intensive, working with you directly the entire time.
Okay. So the big question that everybody asks when it comes around is, what is tuition? Well, what we decided to do is, because this intensive was, we believe, a missing piece of the puzzle, we've decided to keep the tuition the same. It's the same as it was last year in December. The tuition is $24.97 for the entire thing, for the 5-day immersive intensive, as well as all of the course material. So what we haven't talked about, because we've been calling the course material bonuses, we haven't talked about all the other bonuses. There's actually probably approximately over 100 hours worth of course material if you include all the bonuses. I think it's actually like 120 hours, or there's many, many, many sessions. Like we talked about, there's commentaries, there's live profiling sessions. If you've been following our email about profiler training, then you probably have gotten access to some of that as well. And everybody who's on the webinar tonight will get access to a live profiling session that I did in a previous event with Trevor. So you'll get live profiling examples. You'll get what we call our 16 avatar series. The 16 avatar series is me profiling people of all 16 personality types. So you get to listen in on that. There's intensive webinars involved. There's
special workshops we've done.
Special workshops we've done on different theories like generational theory, and we've done a little bit on Enneagram. And we also have different clips that we've used to illustrate personality types. We've got a bunch of bonuses on, we call them the profiler tools. There's 12 different profiler tools. So there's a lot of content. We are not expecting, one of the reasons why we're not mentioning all of those bonuses that you will still get access to, that all previous years have gotten access to, is because we don't feel like you have to consume all of them before you come to the 5-day intensive. All you really need to make sure that you get through is the core 40 session content. That's the important thing before the 5 days. But all of that other bonus material is available for you to consume whenever you want to. And you can continue your learning over, onward after the 5-day event with probably 6 months worth of bonuses to watch. So it's a behemoth of a program. You don't have to do it all intensely immediately. There's just a certain portion that has to be gone through before you get to the immersive event. But you have 100 plus hours, and we always add things. We're constantly adding more and more and more to profiler training because we know that it helps people get better. And so you'll have access to all of that too. But even though you're getting access to everything everybody in the previous years has gotten access to, plus the 5-day intensive, we're keeping it the same price of $24.97, the same tuition.
And obviously we have payment plans that you can break down to make it more affordable for your budget. We have a lot of people that take advantage of that. And it just makes it easier to not have to, bring a big chunk investment up front. You can spread that over up to 6 months and it'll just go right through the live event experience. So that's something you can think about too if you want to do this. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to actually only do application and invite only to the course. One of the things we've realized is that we want to ensure that we have the right students in each class. And so what we want to do is we want to have an application process for you to apply, and then sort through that and then invite you if we feel like it would be a really good fit for you. So you're going to need to figure out on your own if the investment of time and tuition is the right choice for you. When you do, you can fill out an application. We get those applications in as a team. We're going to review those together, and we're going to put together the right class that's going to be able to learn together and get this skill down. So applications are going to actually open up tonight. As soon as we get to the next part of the slide here, you can apply to Profiler Training. It's a small application fee. I think it's like $25, just so we know you're serious. And we'll refund that if your application is not accepted. But it's just for us to know that you're actually serious about it. So it eliminates just thousands and thousands of people just entering into the form, just so we can know that you're actually, you want to really do it. You've thought about it. So it's just another barrier to stop and think.
Right.
So today's the 5th. Did you want to say something about that?
No, I was just going to say, if we decide that if you or we decide it's not a fit, then you get the $25 refunded. If we decide it is a fit, then you get the $25 applied to the tuition. So it's not an extra $25.
Yeah.
It's just to make sure that you are serious. And one of the reasons why we have an application is that in times past, we've had people get really excited, right? And they're like, yeah, totally, I want to do this, right? And they watch a webinar that we've produced, and they're like, yes, let's do this. And then they discover that it's not right for them. And sometimes people have, we've parted ways, we've given refunds, and other times a person they just kind of phased out. And we don't like that. We're not fans of people investing, something like the tuition that we're talking about, but then just never doing anything with the program. That doesn't make us feel good either. So in order to make sure that it's right for you, we're doing an application process. And that way we'll know that you're serious about this and we're serious about it on our end, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, so that opens tonight. This is June 5th is the time of this recording. And we're going to leave that application time period open until June 16th. So at that point, that's the deadline. And we're going to send a few emails out over the next few days. So if you're getting emails, just understand that we're in the middle of the application period. So by the 16th, the applications will close. And then over that weekend, the weekend of the 16th, Antonia, myself, and our team are going to sit down with all those applications. We're going to review them, and we're going to basically select the people we'd like to be inviting into that class. And then we're going to announce those on Tuesday, June 19th. And then on the 20th, it's access to all of your bonuses, and we start your payment plan that day. If you're doing a payment plan, or if you want to just do the entire tuition, that's fine as well. And then on the 21st, which is a Thursday night, we're going to do a format very similar to this on Zoom, where we're going to do the orientation. We're going to talk about the syllabus, the schedule, what you need to know, when the Q&As are, when the calibration hangouts are. We're going to give you all the information of how you're interfaced with the class leading up to that 5-day intensive in November. And we're going to talk about that in a minute here, what the dates are for that and where that is. We'll get that in a second. So now that's going to be your next question. And then on the 22nd, you still have up until the 22nd. If you go ahead through all the entire period of time, you get accepted, and then you just really discover, after looking at the content, talking with us on the orientation, this isn't for me, you still have the opportunity to withdraw up until Friday, the 22nd of June. And that allows us, if there's people on a waiting list, which we anticipate having, we're going to probably have first selection of people that are going to be invited into the class. We'll have a waiting list, and if any of those spots drop out, so if someone withdraws, then we'll go ahead to the waiting list and go basically first come, first serve on that waiting list, and just bump somebody up and invite them to come and join the class.
Right.
So this is the schedule for the application period that's starting tonight.
So we recommend that this is right for you, right? That you and we give you a little bit of time to be able to, dip your toes in. Once you do the first payment, if you end up getting on a payment plan for the tuition, then you get access to all of the information. So you'll have access to the back end and see what that looks like. You'll have class orientation. So you'll be able to get sort of a real good view of what's involved. And then if you decide, this isn't right for me, then you have until Friday the 22nd to withdraw, and then allow somebody else to come in if they've been waiting. So
now, sorry.
No.
I want to talk about the actual live event, the dates and where it is. Mm-hmm. So we've run 2 calibration events for past classes for Profiler Training. We've run those in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We live in the middle of Pennsylvania. here on the East Coast of the United States. It's been very easy for us to run them there because it's a day's drive. But we realize there's a lot of people on the West Coast that have been left out of some of those calibration events. And we realized that doing an intensive on the West Coast of the United States would allow people from Australia possibly to fly in for this, because we have a lot of Australian students. It's a little further away from Europe, I get it, but even Europeans can probably find reasonable flights to the Los Angeles, California area. So we've decided and we've settled on the city of Los Angeles, Hollywood, California, to do the profiler training 5-day intensive. And that'll be happening somewhere in the Los Angeles area, close to the LAX airport, within a drive of the LAX airport where you can get transportation. So somewhere in the Los Angeles area. We're still nailing down the details of the specific hotel or meeting space that we're going to use. However, we do know the dates.
We do. And part of the reason why we don't have a specific, we actually have a hotel that we're eyeing right now.
Well, we have a deposit on it, but we're confirming it with our team.
Because we're not sure how big this group is going to be. And one of the reasons why we might have a waiting list is because every single profiler training year has almost doubled from the previous year. And that's one of the reasons why we thought we've got to split these up into 2 different tracks per year, because the classes are getting kind of unmanageably large. Yeah. And so depending upon how big this class is, we might have to change venues, but it currently is in a venue very close to LAX, and we'll make sure that it's a very convenient venue if the class size gets large enough to require us to make new accommodations.
So this event is going to be held. We do know the dates. The dates are complete and firm. It's going to be Tuesday, November 13th through Saturday, November 17th. And it's going to start Tuesday morning, probably 8 or 9 a.m. It's going to run all day. There's going to be long days. We'll break obviously for meals and a few breaks here and there, but we're going to be together most of the time, and we'll be working really hard on making sure you get this skill. So there probably won't be a lot of like midday sightseeing or anything like that. We can do that maybe in the evenings or on the weekend coming up. But if you're there on the ground, it's going to be a very intensive day. Tuesday, November 13th through Saturday, November 17th, 2018. So this coming November, that gives us about 4 months for you to prepare yourself for that live event. So all the 4 bonuses we talked about with the system, the theory, the content, any of the other content bonuses, the calibration hangouts, the Q&A calls, the Facebook group, it's all designed for the next 4 months to prepare you for that live 5-day intensive, which is happening November 13th, Tuesday, November 13th, through Saturday, November 17th, 2018. Now, you're going to ask a question. I know we're going to get this question next is, I live in London, England, and I don't know if I can make it for that event in November. What do I do? Should I still sign up for profiler training? If that's a question you have, I'd recommend that you go ahead and email us in at info@personalityhacker.com, and let's talk about your situation in specifics, because there may be some options for you. Our recommendation is, if you can't come to that live event, that really is the Super Bowl. That's the thing that's going to really help you understand the system. If you can't come to that and you're still interested in the course, email us and we can talk about it. But our recommendation is that you make plans to come to that live event November 13th through the 17th, 2018. That's going to be really critical for you to get this skill down.
So the syllabus itself will be a 13-week syllabus for the core content. And then because we have a little bit of extra time beyond that, so that's like basically July, August, September. And then you'll have October to make up anything. If you've not been able to get through the syllabus through the end of September, you'll have October and a little bit of November as wiggle room to put that content in. But it is a 13-week syllabus, which you'll get access to as soon as we'll talk about it in class orientation. But that's basically how the schedule will look. It'll be a 13-week syllabus, consuming the core content, about a month and a half to make sure that you make up for anything that you haven't done, or you can start consuming all of the other bonuses during that time period. And then the Super Bowl of profiler training happens mid-November in Los Angeles.
So how do you apply? Well, if you would like to apply to the new profiler training class coming November 13th through the 17th, 2018, go to personalityhacker.com/profiler training. There's a page with more information on it. Some of the things we talked about in this webinar presentation, there's going to be more details on that page. It's going to give a lot of the outlines for this stuff. On that page, you get all the information and then decide to apply directly from that page. So personalityhacker.com/profiler training is the place you go to apply.
Right. So with the application will be a $25 application fee. Again, if you don't get in, it's refundable. And if you do, then it's applied to your tuition. So so go check it out. personalityhacker.com profiler training. It's also got a bit of the anticipated schedule for the live events. It's got all the information on it that you might need. And of course, if you have any further questions, you can always send us an email at info@personalityhacker.com. But you are live right now, so you're not listening to it as a webinar. So what we can do right now is we can take a little bit of time to answer some questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into chat. There's 213
I would say don't worry about chat. If you have a question, we're going to need you to go over to the question and answer form because there's like tons of stuff in chat. So I would just close that out. Don't even get distracted by that. Go to Q&A. And then if you have a question, that way there's only like 30 some questions here. It's going to be a lot easier for us to sort through these and the questions here than the chat back and forth. And this will be a
Let me see if there's any questions specifically about the events, and then I'll go in and we can do some answering of questions about type in general.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Chris Hyatt said, "Are you going to share the slides afterwards?" We can. Yeah, we can upload.
Yeah,
the slides
we're gonna get the recording of this webinar hopefully up tonight if I can get it edited and up online somewhere where you can watch the recording, and then we're also going to hopefully export the slides and have those available to download to have those on your side as well. Okay. So again, if you want to apply, we have applications open until June 16th. Personalityhacker.com/profiler training is the way to do that. If you have any questions, please email info@personalityhacker.com. That will come into Cheris, who manages our customer care, and she will then help direct those questions to us. We can get those answered for you. If you have any questions about the program, any more nuanced questions that you didn't get answered tonight, anything like that, that's the best place to do it.
Okay, so we've answered where it's located, which week it will be, how many spots are open. We tentatively have said 40 slots at this time, but we had 75 students join our previous class, so we're sort of anticipating, we're thinking
that's the room we've reserved is for 40 people.
Exactly. The room we've reserved is for 40, but if more people come in and if it's an overwhelming number, then we'll have to make accommodations for that. But right now our eyeball number is 40.
Do you think someone abroad can do the 3 months at home and travel to America just for the 5 days? Yes, that's what we recommend you do. That you would do all the pre-work to prepare for the event, and then come here to the United States and to Los Angeles for the training in November 13th to the 17th.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Someone's asking when this opens again. Mm-hmm. Currently, we have traditionally for the past 7 years, 6 or 7 years actually, opened profiler training around the month of December. And that was the only time of the year we would do it. And now we're starting, this is the first year we are testing to see if students are interested in the month of June. So we're opening up a second class now in the month of June this year to see how it goes. And this is focused on that live event in November. So if this goes well, all the tests happen and everything goes well, and we believe that we can continue to deliver value and teach the system using this 5-day model with preparation leading up to it, our plans tentatively are to launch it again in December. Mm-hmm. And we're still calibrating things, and we're not exactly sure this is the direction we may be going after this class. So I don't want to say that. That sounds potentially like a sales technique to say, you better sign up now, because we may not do it. And I promise you, legitimately, like we're leaning toward it. The likelihood of us doing another class in December is high. But I hate to say that and promise it to you, and then you don't sign up for this class, assuming that's going to definitely be the case. And then we end up not doing it in December and you being upset with me. So I'm just giving you the full information that we're doing some tests. We are planning on most likely doing it in December, but I don't want to promise that just in case we have to make changes so no one's upset later.
Have you guys ever had federal government employees to attend your profiler training paid for by the government? My boss almost convinced that this is something they should sponsor me to pursue, but looking at the timelines you have laid out aren't exactly conducive to the government contract scheduling process. I might be able to make it work on the government purchase card, which would be faster, but the time from acceptance to payment is too ambitious for our wonderful Fed system. No, I totally, completely understand. At this time, we've had companies sponsor employees, and we are in conversation with a unit right now to talk about doing some profiler training for the units. But
it's a local law enforcement.
It's a local law enforcement, exactly. So, so unfortunately, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, we can work with you in some ways. If you need us to, talk to the person who would be sponsoring you, like your your department, we could have those conversations. But at this point, it might be, you'd probably have to negotiate it on your end. But we have had many people, their businesses pay for them to come.
Cheris or me on our team might be able to help you more if you email in, and we can probably give you some help. I know that Nee's worked with people to help them get their business or whatever to cover it. Again, the federal government, they're on their time. They're on their time schedule. There's nothing we can really do about that, right? But yeah. So I think if you email in, maybe we'll give you some ideas on what to do with that. But I don't exactly know. You probably know more than we do about the federal government. Does the cost include lodging at the hotel and the event? So this is also include meals. No, transportation, lodging, and meals would be on your own. This is the actual course itself. So you're invited to come to the course, but all that would be on your own because people are coming from all over the world and they have different. The event will be at a hotel and you could stay at another hotel. It's a different price point. So we leave that up to you. So you can orchestrate that for yourself, depending on your budget. You want to stay 5-star hotel next door, or stay at the hotel we're using, or stay at a Motel 6 down the road. It's really up to you how you want to orchestrate that on your side.
Right. We've always done, we've done, we actually met at a live event.
In Los Angeles, actually.
In Los Angeles. And I stayed at the hotel that the live event was being held at, and you stayed a little bit down the road.
A cheaper hotel. And
we bunked with people.
Yeah.
We made it work. Yeah. So it would be something that you would have to also budget for on that. Do students pay the full price? It depends on which class we're in, but if you, Leslie, as a alumni of a previous class, we're going to be sending out information to alumni about the event. So hang tight for more information on that as alumni.
There's a way to come that's going to make a lot of sense to you.
On the day for the first payment, is that when we're expected to pay in full if we don't want to do the monthly payments? So whatever your payment plan for the tuition or your tuition plan is, then the day of the day that after we accept applicants and announce them, and then you get all of the information in the back end, all of the content, the digital content in the back end, whichever tuition plan you've signed up for, that will be at that, it'll be due at that time.
What they're asking is if they don't sign up for a payment plan, like they just pay half now, when's the final due? If you're not enrolled in a payment plan that we offer, your balance will be due before the 5-day event starts, or it could be done at the door when you come. But before that 5-day event starts, you would need to pay your balance, unless you're enrolled in, for example, the 6-month payment plan, which would go to the month after that live event, because you're into a program that's automatically taking care of the payments. So that's just basically if the balance is outstanding, you have to have that taken care of before the 5-day starts.
Hey, DZ, Joel just sort of answered this, but I'm planning to do this next year and I will be saving up starting now. Is there going to be more people next year to inhibit the class? Actually, like we mentioned, this doing it a 5-day intensive is new for us. Like I mentioned, we've been doubling class sizes every year. Literally doubling it every year. And that's been a little disconcerting to us, which is one of the reasons why we're splitting it in half. So it might be that the class sizes become smaller since we're doing them in 6-month increments as opposed to 1-year increments. But I can't really promise that either because we're not sure. We haven't done it midway of the year. So this is a little bit of a test for us too, to see how many students we end up enrolled in this particular course, because we're doing it at a 6-month mark. So we're not sure actually.
We've tested the live event model on smaller days with calibration events. We're confident that's going to work. What we're testing is not the ability to teach you the information or teach you the skill in that 5 days. What we're testing is mid-year, first of the year, things like that. We're testing just basically scheduling and things, right? We're not testing how to learn this stuff. I just want to be clear on that. Those aren't tests running.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, the event itself isn't a test, but the doing it at 6-month mark and then doing the primary content in the live events is we're still sort of hammering a little bit of that out. So as far as the size of the classes, that's something I would have known last year what to tell you. I would have said, yeah, it's probably going to double again. But now we're unsure. So fingers crossed that we have good class sizes, but we're still able to, attend to everything.
The nature of focusing this on a live event, we understand it's going to limit the amount of people that can come to that, because a lot of our students up until now have been overseas. We have a significant population of students that lives in Australia, in Europe. We have a student in South Africa. I think every single continent at this point, except for Antarctica, has been a student, which is really cool. But that also, by focusing on a live event now, which we believe is the best way to deliver the skill, we understand that limits some people in order to be able to come. Like we understand that, so the numbers might be lower based on that new element that we think is going to actually move the needle for people in a much more profound way.
I see it as about 20%. Probably. Yeah. And what's nice though, is that if you are overseas and this ends up being wildly successful, if this ends up being like a really great way of doing this, we actually have talked about hosting one overseas, maybe doing one in London, maybe doing one in Sydney. So, but we, of course, we can't make any promises on that one. But if you are overseas and you're like, oh, I was going to totally do it this year, but now I'm not sure if I can schedule that. It is entirely possible that we will come to you at some point in the future. We're just not sure if that's, it's not like an official thing yet. All right. So for those of us who have listened to many of your podcasts and have been doing some self-led learning on our own, how much of the 3-month syllabus will be concepts you're familiar with? It begins at the beginner phase, but it does get progressively more complex. And then, of course, the information isn't designed just to simply consume the theory of the system. Most of it is designed to get better at the skill of profiling. So
that's a big distinction.
It's a big distinction.
If you're thinking about taking this just to learn more, I mean, we're not going to stop you if you really want to do that just to learn the system, but really if you want to hone the skill of profiling is what this is intended for. It's not just to learn more about the theory or the practice of Myers-Briggs or even like the distinctions and stuff. While all that comes along with it, this is designed to output students that understand how to do profiling.
Yeah. So, so a couple of people have said, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do an intensive on that level. Is there anything that it would be more of a starter version? And we haven't created anything like that at this time.
But we hear your requests.
But we're hearing your requests. Yeah.
And we're thinking through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are.
Evil plans in place.
Because the profiler training is a very intense. It's always intense, actually, even when it hasn't been a live event. Even in the 6 month to 1 year process, it's always been something we say it's an investment of time, it's an investment of energy, a focus of resource. So we know that it's a behemoth, and we have heard your request for doing something that's a little bit more of a starter version. So we've been talking about that and seeing what that might look like. But at this time, we don't have anything like that available.
Yeah.
So right now, the profiler training intensive is the thing that we're doing right now. But we have heard your request and we're listening to it, and we're talking a little bit about what something that would be a less intense version would look like.
And one of the things that I'll make a note about is, while you will learn personal growth things in this class, it can become a personal growth learning experience for you. We talk a lot about, for example, on the podcast and all of our videos and things, about using access points like typology and other disciplines for personal growth. While this will help you because it's a tool set for personal growth, this is not a personal growth program. In other words, it's not designed to help you get through your traumas or your personal growth issues. While it can be used for those things, that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to impart a skill to you. And so when we hear requests about, is there another format to learn some of these things that is not so intense, it's not so much of the profiling piece, we would also combine that same thing with more of a personal growth focus. So it would be learning a little bit more of the system with the intent of personal growth, which this is not. This is a skill building tool that you're learning. This is a skill that you're basically mastering. And the personal growth aspect would be something else that we might develop some content around. So we're in the works for that. We got a couple of projects this year to finish out, but possibly next year we would think in terms of developing something like that.
Right. Somebody mentioned that the link wasn't working. I just went to it. The link is working on my side. Should be personalityhacker.com/profiler training. So hopefully that's working for you.
If it doesn't work again, email us and say, the link isn't working. Please send me a link, and we'll try to help figure that out for you.
All right. So you want to do some Q&A with just general questions?
Yeah. By the way, I just want to thank, before we go into the Q&A, let's go ahead and formally finish this up and say thank you very much for coming, everybody that came. Join us for the content that Antonia talked about at the very beginning, and then peeking behind the curtain into the profiler training intensive. We're really excited about it this November. We hope that you can apply and come if the application process works for you. If it works out, basically, if you're invited to come, we hope you can come and be a part of that. We'd love to see you there. I think it's going to be a great experience for you to learn profiling. And so from both Antonia and myself, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we will talk to you on the next webinar or session or podcast or wherever we meet you again. And hopefully we'll see you live in November.